Okay, so the next aspect of geometry that I would like for you to know is how to plot a graph on a piece of paper and then how to find the slope of that graph. And so whenever you are graphing, the y is going to be the up and down axis, and then the x is going to be the sideways axis. So I think that you already know how to plot points on a graph, so I'm not going to go into that. But what I am going to go into is how do you find the slope of a graph. And so the slope is going to be equal to rise over run. And then the rise part is going to be the change in the y-axis, and then the run part is going to be the change in the x-axis. So that's what we mean by slope. And so in this particular example, we're going to have a straight line. Now, you can have different kinds of lines. So you can have straight lines, you can have curved lines, you have different kinds of functions. So you could have exponentials, logarithms, sine functions, cosine functions. But what I want you just to know is how to find the slope of a straight line. And so here's an example where I've plotted it on a piece of paper, and then you find any 2 points that are on the graph. So find 2 points on the graph, and then for each of those points you're going to go down to the x-axis, and then you're going to go over to the y-axis. It doesn't make any difference which one you call 1 and which one that you call 2. So I'm going to call this point like point number 1, and then this one over here is going to be point 2. So the reason why you have to be very careful is that when you do this change in the y, then you're going to do y, let's say 2 minus y 1. Now when you go to do your x, you have to do exactly the same thing. So it's going to be x2 minus x1. Now there's nothing special about this, so you could have done y1 minus y2. But if you do that, then you got to do x1 minus x2. So whatever you do to the top part, you got to do to the bottom part there. And so we've got these two numbers here, and so then this is going to correspond to x1 because it was 0.1, and then this one's going to correspond to x2, and then over here this is going to be y1, and then this one's going to be y number 2. And as long as you got a straight line, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever where you pick your points on there. It's normally a little bit more accurate if they're further apart from each other. If you're careful, you could even choose a point like this one down here. And so the advantage of doing that is that you know exactly that the y component has to be 0. Similarly, if you choose this point up here, you know exactly that the x component has to be 0 for that. So sometimes if you choose the right points, it helps you to find the slope. So in this particular case, the rise is going to be -2, and then it's going to be -1, and then the other one is going to be a 5 minus 1, so that when you divide everything out, you end up with a negative 0.75. So what's the significance of a negative slope? A negative slope means it's going down. If it had been a positive slope, it means it's going up. So what's halfway between positive and negative? 0. So what do you think if this is negative and then this is positive, what would 0 have to look like? So 0 would be a horizontal line when you do that. Another thing that you ought to know is the equation of a line. So the equation of a straight line is going to be y is going to be equal to mx plus b. M is going to be the slope, and so we've already just calculated that, and it turned out to be negative 0.75, and then you still have the x, so the x is going to be the independent variable, and then the y is going to be the dependent variable because y depends on what x is. And then you've got the b thing. So the b is going to be the slope intercept. So where is it going to intercept the y axis? And so this point up here, that would be the b. And so in this particular case, the b turns out to be 1.75. So y equals negative 0.75, and you could put a 0 in front of that decimal point to indicate that it's there, but 0.75x plus 1.75. So that's how you would manually calculate the slope of a graph. Now later I'm going to show you how you can use the computer, Microsoft Excel, in order to do that for you. But it's important to be able to do it just with a pencil and paper before you do it using the computer. Okay, now our next topic is going to be on vectors and scalars. So I will see you in just a moment.